I am Robin, 32 years old, a talented marketing director who turned an industry on its head. Despite my dedication and string of successes at Harris & Goldman VP, James Wright never saw my worth. He only saw my gender. The day everything changed happened at the exclusive Windsor Club. His assistant Alexandra smirked. "Perhaps leaving suits you better." I just smiled and texted. The general manager appeared, placed a chair for me, and whispered to James. His confident smirk vanished instantly. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever dealt with workplace sabotage. Trust me, what happened next is worth sticking around for. My career in marketing began with such promise. I graduated top of my class from Columbia University and landed an entry-level position at Harris & Goldman, one of the most prestigious marketing firms in New York City. The company occupied 3 floors in a gleaming Manhattan skyscraper, its glass and steel exterior reflecting the ambition of everyone who worked there. From day one, I sensed the competitive atmosphere. The open office layout seemed designed to encourage both collaboration and surveillance. Performance metrics displayed on large screens, constant emails about who landed which client, and quarterly achievement ceremonies where top performers received recognition in front of the entire company. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. For women, the competition felt even more intense. We were outnumbered 3-to-1 in leadership positions. The dress code, while not explicitly different, somehow always seemed to be enforced more strictly for female employees. Comments about our appearance came disguised as compliments. Mentorship opportunities went predominantly to male colleagues. Despite these challenges, I threw myself into my work. After 3 years of consistent performance, I was promoted to project manager. By year 5, I became a senior marketing strategist leading a small team of my own. Then came the opportunity that would change everything. Our CEO, Michael Harrison, announced the Phoenix Project, an innovative marketing campaign that would potentially revolutionize how our clients engaged with digital platforms. This would be the biggest project our company had undertaken in years, with a budget of $12 million and partnerships with tech giants across Silicon Valley. My immediate supervisor, Karen Fletcher, recommended me to lead one of the key components of Phoenix. "Robin has shown exceptional insight into digital consumer behavior," she told the executive team. "Her campaign for Atlantic breweries increased their market share by 14%. She understands where this industry is heading." That recommendation led to my first significant interaction with James Wright, the Vice President of Strategic Development. James had an impressive reputation. He had come from a competitor 5 years earlier, bringing major clients with him. His presentations were legendary, his networking skills unmatched, and his confidence bordered on arrogance. Our first meeting went surprisingly well. James listened to my ideas for Phoenix, asked insightful questions, and seemed genuinely impressed by my research into emerging digital trends. "This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need," he said, smiling broadly. "I think you will be an asset to this project." I left his office feeling validated and excited. That evening, I celebrated with my colleague and friend Benjamin Taylor, who had been at Harris & Goldman even longer than I had. "Congratulations on impressing the mighty James Wright," Benjamin said, raising his glass of wine. "Not an easy feat." "He seemed pretty reasonable to me," I replied. "All that talk about him being impossible to please seems exaggerated." Benjamin gave me a strange look. "Just be careful. James can be charming when he wants something, but he plays favorites, and his favorites tend to look a certain way." "You mean male?" I asked bluntly. Benjamin nodded. "Have you noticed that none of the women who started in our cohort have made it past senior manager? Remember Stephanie Donovan? She was brilliant, led that campaign for luxury motors that won 3 industry awards. What happened to her, I asked. She was on track for director, then suddenly there were complaints about her work. Projects reassigned. Eventually she left for a smaller firm. I dismissed his concerns. That could have been for any number of reasons. Besides, times are changing, and I plan to let my work speak for itself. The following week, I was officially assigned to the Phoenix Project. I would lead the digital engagement strategy team responsible for creating innovative ways to connect with consumers across multiple platforms. It was exactly the kind of challenge I had been waiting for. Laura Simmons, a veteran creative director who had been with the company for 15 years, stopped by my desk that afternoon. "I heard about your new assignment. Congratulations." Her tone lacked enthusiasm. "Thanks," I replied, noticing her reservation. "Is something wrong?" "Just wanted to offer some advice. Document everything. Every idea, every contribution. And watch your back with James. He has a way of taking credit when things go well and assigning blame when they don't." I thought Laura was being paranoid, maybe even jealous. At 32, I was younger than she had been when reaching my current position. I thanked her politely and turned back to my work, already planning how I would make Phoenix the most successful project in Harris and Goldman history. Little did I know that I had just been handed both the greatest opportunity and the greatest challenge of my career. The Phoenix project would indeed change everything, but not in the way I had imagined. Laura was not done with her warnings. The following day, she invited me to lunch at a small cafe across from our building. Away from the watchful eyes and listening ears of the office, she spoke more freely. "Robin, I need you to understand what you are up against," she said, leaning forward. "James has a pattern. He identifies talented women in the company, gets them assigned to his projects, then systematically undermines them until they either quit or get fired." I stirred my coffee skeptically. That seems like an elaborate conspiracy theory. "In the last 5 years, 7 women have been put in positions similar to yours. None of them are still with the company." Laura pulled out a small notebook from her purse and slid it across the table. "These are their names and what happened to each of them." I glanced at the list: Stephanie Donovan, Catherine Miller, Diana Wong, and others. Next to each name were notes about project reassignments, sudden performance issues, and eventual departures. "This could all be coincidence," I argued. "Correlation doesn't equal causation." Laura sighed. Melanie Parker was the most recent. She developed the initial concept for what eventually became the Phoenix Project. 3 months ago, she was let go for supposed budgetary concerns. 2 weeks later, James presented her concept to the board as his own with a few minor tweaks. "If this is true, why has nobody reported it?" I asked. "To whom James is close with Michael Harrison. They play golf together, vacation together. And the women who leave sign NDAs as part of their severance packages." Laura took back her notebook. "Just be careful, Robin. Keep records of everything." I left lunch troubled but still skeptical. James had been nothing but supportive in our interactions so far. But I decided to follow Laura's advice about documentation just in case. My first official Phoenix project meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. I arrived 20 minutes early, prepared with a comprehensive presentation on digital engagement strategies. As I set up in the conference room, James entered with a woman I had never met before. "Robin, this is Alexandra Porter, my executive assistant," James said. "She will be taking notes for all Phoenix meetings." Alexandra was impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. She gave me a cool nod and took a seat directly across from mine. The meeting began with James outlining the overall vision for Phoenix. Then it was my turn to present my ideas for the digital engagement component. I have identified 5 key areas where we can innovate. I began bringing up my first slide. First, personalized content delivery based on real-time consumer behavior analytics. I was 3 minutes into my presentation when James interrupted. "This seems very conceptual, Robin. Where are the concrete implementation strategies?" "I am getting to those on the next slides," I replied. "We need actionable plans, not theories," he said dismissively. "Alexandra, make a note that the digital team needs to provide more concrete deliverables." Throughout the rest of my presentation, James interrupted repeatedly with similar criticisms. Ideas I had discussed with him privately the week before, which he had praised enthusiastically, were now described as underdeveloped or impractical. By the end of the meeting, my confidence was shaken. As everyone filed out, Benjamin, who had been silent throughout, touched my arm. That was rough, he whispered. But your ideas were solid. Do not let him get to you. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Resources I requested for my team were delayed. Important emails about client preferences were not forwarded to me until just before deadlines. In meetings, James would ask me questions about information I had never been given access to, making me appear unprepared. Alexandra was always present, taking notes and occasionally whispering in James's ear. When I asked for copies of her meeting minutes, I was told they were executive summaries, not meant for project team circulation. Then came the incident with the quarterly report. I had submitted my section a day early with detailed analytics on our target demographic research. At the department meeting, James projected the report on screen. There seems to be a critical error in the digital team's data, he announced. The age range analysis on page 17 contradicts the platform usage statistics on page 23. I quickly flipped to the pages in my printed copy. There must be a mistake. Those numbers were consistent in my submission. James raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting someone altered your report? The room fell silent. I studied the projected figures, then noticed something. These are not the numbers I submitted. The original range was 28 to 45, not 18 to 35. Alexandra reformatted all the team reports for consistency, James said smoothly. Perhaps there was a transcription error. Alexandra looked up innocently. I copied the figures exactly as provided, Mr. Wright. I can show you the original files. I knew I was being set up, but I had no way to prove it. After the meeting, I rushed back to my office and checked my sent emails. To my horror, the attachment with my original report was no longer there, though the email itself remained. That evening, I found Benjamin working late in his office. I need your help, I said, closing his door. Something strange is happening with the Phoenix project. Benjamin listened as I explained the altered report and other inconsistencies. Laura warned me about this, I concluded. Benjamin's expression grew serious. I think it is time you started fighting back. The next morning, I implemented new protocols for myself and my team. Every email now included a read receipt request. All documents were saved in multiple locations, including my personal cloud storage. Team meetings were recorded for reference purposes with everyone's knowledge. I began working extra hours, coming in before James arrived and leaving after he had gone. My team noticed my increased intensity, but rallied behind me. They too had sensed something was off with how our work was being received. We know how good our strategies are, said Alicia, one of my most talented team members. If they are not being recognized, something else is going on. I also started researching James Wright more thoroughly. I discovered he had left his previous company under curious circumstances. The official story was that he had been headhunted by Harris & Goldman, bringing valuable clients with him. But industry rumors suggested there had been internal conflicts over credit for a major campaign. One night, working late, I encountered Rachel Palmer in the elevator. She was the CEO of Vortex Digital, one of our technology partners for the Phoenix project. Long hours, she asked sympathetically. The project demands it, I replied. But it is worth it. Phoenix could redefine digital marketing. Rachel studied me curiously. You remind me of someone I used to know. Same passion, same drive. She worked with James at his previous firm. Oh, I kept my tone casual. What happened to her? She left the industry entirely. Last I heard, she was teaching at a community college in Oregon. Rachel's expression darkened. Shame. She was brilliant. Why did she leave? I pressed. Rachel hesitated. Professional differences officially. Unofficially, James has a talent for identifying threats and neutralizing them, particularly female threats. I had heard enough warnings now to take them seriously. That weekend, I meticulously reviewed every Phoenix project document I could access. I noticed subtle changes between my original submissions and the versions presented to clients. Key elements of my strategy were being diluted or removed entirely. More concerning, I discovered references to Pinnacle Partners, a digital marketing firm I had never heard of, buried in the implementation notes. A quick search revealed Pinnacle was a small company based in Chicago with limited experience in large-scale campaigns. I called Laura on Sunday evening. "Does the name Pinnacle Partners mean anything to you?" There was a pause on the line. James's brother-in-law started that company 2 years ago. Why? The pieces were falling into place. I dug deeper into the project documentation and found that Pinnacle was slated to receive a significant portion of the implementation budget for Phoenix, despite not being officially listed as a project partner. Monday morning, I arranged to accidentally run into William Abbott, a senior board member in the company coffee shop. He was known for his direct approach and commitment to company integrity. "Mr. Abbott, I have been meaning to ask you about the board's vision for external partnerships on Phoenix," I said casually. "We are keeping partnerships minimal," he replied. "Too many cooks spoil the broth. Just the 3 tech giants and our usual implementation teams." "So no involvement from smaller firms like Pinnacle Partners?" I asked innocently. Abbott frowned. "Never heard of them. Why would we bring in an unknown entity on our biggest project in years?" I merely nodded thoughtfully and changed the subject, but I had confirmed my suspicion. The board had no idea about Pinnacle's involvement. Back at my desk, I found an email from James requesting a private meeting that afternoon. When I arrived at his office, Alexandra was absent for once. "Robin, I want to discuss the direction of your team's contribution." James began pleasantly. "I feel we may need to adjust course." "In what way?" I asked. "The personalization strategies you have proposed are innovative, but may be too ambitious for our timeline. I think we should scale back and take a more conventional approach." The conventional approach he outlined sounded suspiciously like services Pinnacle advertised on their website. "That would undermine the entire purpose of Phoenix," I argued. "The client specifically asked for innovation in personalization." "I have already discussed this with Michael James," said, referring to our CEO. "He agrees with my assessment." "May I see the updated project brief?" I asked. "Alexandra is finalizing it now. You will receive it tomorrow." James's smile did not reach his eyes. "This is not a suggestion, Robin. This is a directive." I left his office seething but determined. That evening, I sent a secure message to Benjamin Need to talk. Not at the office. We met at a small restaurant 10 blocks from Harris and Goldman. Over dinner, I shared everything I had discovered. "He is deliberately sabotaging the innovative elements of Phoenix to justify bringing in his brother-in-law's company," I concluded. "And he is setting me up to take the blame when the project fails to deliver the promised results." Benjamin whistled low. "That is a serious accusation. What are you going to do?" "Fight back," I said firmly. "But I need more evidence." Through careful networking, I arranged a meeting with Rachel Palmer without James's knowledge. She confirmed that James had presented my digital strategy as his own creation during private meetings with Vortex executives. "He showed us a preliminary version last week," Rachel said, "called it his breakthrough approach to digital engagement." I was furious but kept my composure. "Would you be willing to confirm this officially if necessary?" Rachel hesitated. "Vortex needs this partnership, but if it comes down to it, yes, I will back you up." Armed with this information and my growing documentation of irregularities, I continued to build my case. But I needed to be careful. James had allies throughout the company, and I suspected Alexandra was monitoring my communications. Then I discovered something that changed everything. While reviewing budget allocations, I found a hidden provision that would redirect 20% of the Phoenix implementation budget to specialized external consultation. The provision was buried in technical language and concealed among legitimate expenses. This was the smoking gun. James was not just trying to undermine me. He was attempting to divert millions of dollars to his brother-in-law's company, potentially violating corporate governance rules and client contracts. I needed to bring this to light, but going directly to Michael Harrison was risky given his friendship with James. I needed a different approach, one that would expose James's actions in a way he could not deny or explain away. An opportunity presented itself when I learned about an upcoming meeting at the exclusive Windsor Club where James would be presenting the Phoenix strategy to William Abbott and other board members in a more informal setting. Alexandra had deliberately forgotten to add me to the invitation. It was time to make my move. The tension reached its peak on a Wednesday afternoon. I was summoned to a major investor meeting for the Phoenix project, but when I arrived, the conference room was nearly full. Every seat at the table was taken with additional chairs lining the walls for observers. James stood at the head of the table, Alexandra efficiently arranging presentation materials beside him. I noticed my name card was missing from the table. Instead, I found it placed on one of the wall chairs behind several other observers. The message was clear: I was being sidelined at my own project presentation. As I moved toward the back chair, James called the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Today, we will be presenting the final strategy for Phoenix, which represents a bold new direction for Harris and Goldman. He gestured to the executives around the table. I am grateful for the talented team that has helped refine my original vision into what you will see today. My original vision, I felt my face flush with anger. As James launched into his presentation, I realized with growing horror that he was presenting my entire digital engagement strategy as his own creation. Slides I had developed, data my team had analyzed, and innovations I had conceptualized were all being attributed to the executive strategy team with no mention of my contribution. When he reached the implementation section, James announced a surprising enhancement to the original plan. After careful analysis, we determined that our internal teams lack specialized expertise in certain technical areas, he explained smoothly. Therefore, we have identified a boutique agency, Pinnacle Partners, to handle these specialized components. Their unique methodology aligns perfectly with our needs. Several clients exchanged glances. One of them, the marketing director for a major tech company, raised her hand. I was under the impression that Harris and Goldman had all necessary expertise in-house, she said. That was part of your pitch to us. Who is Pinnacle Partners, and why are we just hearing about them now? James smiled confidently. Pinnacle is a cutting-edge digital implementation firm with proprietary methods that complement our strategy. They work exclusively with select clients, which is why they maintain a low profile. I could not stay silent any longer. I stood up from my back row seat. Excuse me, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. As the lead strategist for the digital engagement component of Phoenix, I should clarify that Pinnacle Partners was never part of our original implementation plan, nor have they been vetted by our technical teams. The room fell silent. James's smile tightened. Robin, he said with forced pleasantness, perhaps there has been a miscommunication. You lead one sub-team within the larger Phoenix framework. The executive strategy decisions are made at a higher level, a level that apparently includes redirecting 20% of the client budget to an unvetted firm owned by your brother-in-law, I asked directly. Gasps echoed around the room. James's face darkened. That is an inappropriate and unfounded accusation, he said coldly. Alexandra, please note that we will need to address this unprofessional behavior after the meeting. Alexandra stepped forward. Miss Williams is clearly under significant stress due to her recent performance issues. Perhaps she should be excused from the remainder of the meeting. Performance issues, I repeated incredulously. My team has met or exceeded every legitimate benchmark. The only issues have been with mysteriously altered reports and arbitrarily changed requirements. James turned to the clients and board members. I apologize for this disruption. Robin has been struggling with the scope of the project, which is why we have had to make adjustments to her team's contributions. William Abbott, who had been watching the exchange with narrowed eyes, finally spoke. This is concerning. I was under the impression that Robin was leading the digital strategy, which is the core of Phoenix. Before James could respond, Alexandra stepped between us. Mr. Wright has been guiding the project all along. Robin's role has been supportive rather than directive. She turned to me with a cold smile. Perhaps you should take some time to collect yourself, Robin. This meeting is for key stakeholders only. Several clients looked uncomfortable. The marketing director who had spoken earlier was frowning deeply. James attempted to regain control. Let's continue with the presentation. We can address personnel matters privately. Not when those personnel matters affect $100 million investment, said Abbott firmly. Robin, what exactly are you alleging? I took a deep breath. I have documentation showing that my original strategy has been systematically altered to justify bringing in Pinnacle partners. I also have evidence that James presented my work as his own to our technology partners. Alexandra laughed dismissively. These are absurd allegations from someone clearly afraid of being held accountable for her shortcomings. James nodded in agreement. Robin, this is neither the time nor the place for this discussion. Please leave so we can continue. The marketing director stood up. Actually, I would like to hear more about these allegations. We are investing $15 million in this project based on the innovative personalization strategy that was presented to us initially. A strategy I developed, I stated firmly. That is simply not true, Alexandra snapped. Mr. Wright conceptualized the core approach months ago. Then why do I have emails from February where James asked me to develop a new approach because the existing concepts were, in his words, stale and conventional? I countered. The tension in the room was palpable. James's confident demeanor had given way to barely controlled anger. This meeting is over for you, Robin, he said coldly. Security will escort you out if necessary. To my surprise, Michael Harrison, our CEO, who had been silently observing from the corner, finally spoke. That will not be necessary, James. I think we need to pause this presentation and investigate these claims before proceeding. He turned to the clients. I apologize for this situation. We will reschedule once we have clarity. As the meeting disbanded in confusion, James cornered me in the hallway, Alexandra hovering nearby. You have just committed career suicide, he hissed. By this time tomorrow you will be clearing out your desk. I stood my ground. We will see about that. That evening I received an email from HR requesting my presence at a disciplinary meeting the following morning. James was wasting no time in his counterattack, but neither was I. I spent the night organizing all my evidence and sending secure copies to key allies, including William Abbott. The next day, I walked into the disciplinary meeting to find James, Alexandra, Michael Harrison, and 2 HR representatives waiting. The atmosphere was frigid. Robin Michael began gravely, "We are here to discuss serious allegations of insubordination and unprofessional conduct." I placed my folder of evidence on the table. I am prepared to discuss that and more. The battle lines were drawn, and I knew this confrontation would determine not just the fate of Phoenix, but my entire career. After the disastrous meeting and subsequent disciplinary hearing, I knew I was fighting for my professional life. The HR review had been inconclusive, with Michael Harrison deciding to investigate further before taking action. This gave me a narrow window of opportunity. I spent the next 3 days meticulously organizing my evidence. Every altered document, every misdirected email, every instance where my work had been presented as James's creation was cataloged and annotated. I created a timeline showing how the Phoenix project had evolved from my original concept to its current compromised state. Most damning was the paper trail connecting James to Pinnacle Partners. Through public records and some discreet research, I confirmed that the company was majority owned by Edward Wright, James's brother-in-law. The proposed contract would have paid Pinnacle nearly $3 million for work my internal team was already equipped to perform. But presenting this evidence directly to Michael Harrison was risky. His friendship with James might lead him to dismiss my claims, or worse, warn James, before I could make my case to the board. I needed an ally with influence and integrity. William Abbott, the board member who had questioned James during the investor meeting, seemed my best option, but accessing him would be challenging, especially with Alexandra monitoring my communications. Fortune favored me when I encountered Thomas Wilson in the elevator. Thomas was the general manager of the Windsor Club, an exclusive establishment where many of our company's executives, including William Abbott, were members. I recognized him because he had attended several Harrison Goldman events as a guest of Michael Harrison. "Long day," Thomas asked pleasantly, noticing my armful of files. "The longest," I admitted with a tired smile. "The Phoenix project is consuming every waking hour." "Ah, yes, James Wright has been talking about that at the club. Sounds like a significant undertaking." I carefully controlled my expression. "James has been discussing Phoenix at the Windsor." Thomas nodded. "He has a presentation scheduled this Friday for some board members. Private dining room, very hush. Hush." This was the opportunity I had been waiting for, a chance to present my case directly to board members, circumventing both James and Michael. "Thomas," I said, lowering my voice, "I need to ask you something in confidence." Over the next 20 minutes, in the quiet corner of a nearby coffee shop, I shared enough of my situation to make Thomas understand the stakes. I was careful not to reveal proprietary information, but made it clear that James was potentially engaging in unethical behavior that could damage the company. Thomas listened thoughtfully. "William Abbott is a man of principle," he said finally. "He has zero tolerance for any hint of impropriety. If what you are saying is true, he would want to know." "Can you help me get access to this meeting?" I asked directly. Thomas hesitated. "The Windsor has strict policies about privacy. Members expect discretion." "I am not asking you to breach confidentiality," I clarified, "just to ensure that as the legitimate lead of Phoenix, I am not deliberately excluded from a presentation about my own project." After careful consideration, Thomas agreed to notify me when James and the board members arrived at the club. He could not officially add me to the reservation, but he would not prevent me from entering the private dining area. "What happens after that is between you and Mr. Wright," he said firmly. With this plan in place, I turned my attention to gathering final pieces of evidence. I needed to prove beyond doubt that Pinnacle Partners was being positioned to siphon funds from Phoenix without adding value. Rachel, from Vortex Digital, proved invaluable again. She provided me with notes from her meetings with James where he had presented my strategies as his own. More importantly, she revealed that James had pressured Vortex to work with Pinnacle on implementation despite their reservations about the smaller company's capabilities. "We pushed back initially," Rachel explained. "We have our own preferred implementation partners." But James implied that working with Pinnacle was essential to maintaining the relationship with Harrison Goldman. This was a clear abuse of James's position to benefit his brother-in-law's company. Benjamin also came through with crucial information. Through his network, he discovered that James had used similar tactics at his previous firm, directing business to friends and family while taking credit for others' work. "His former assistant is willing to talk," Benjamin told me. "She kept records of everything, expecting a wrongful termination lawsuit that never materialized because the company paid her to stay quiet." This pattern of behavior strengthened my case considerably. It was not just about me or Phoenix, it was about a systematic abuse of power. Laura provided the final piece of the puzzle. She had maintained relationships with several of the women James had pushed out of the company. 3 of them agreed to provide written statements about their experiences, detailing how James had undermined their work, claimed credit for their ideas, and eventually forced them out. "They cannot speak publicly because of their NDAs," Laura explained. "But they have authorized me to share their statements confidentially with board members if necessary." As Friday approached, I refined my presentation to be concise and irrefutable. I knew I would have limited time to make my case before James attempted to shut me down. The night before the Windsor Club meeting, I received a text from Thomas Reservation confirmed for 3 p.m. tomorrow. 5 attendees, including JWWA and 2 other board members. This was it. My opportunity to expose James's manipulation and save both the Phoenix project and my career. I reviewed my evidence one final time, ensuring I had both digital and physical copies of everything. I also prepared for the worst. If my gambit failed, James would ensure I never worked in marketing again. I updated my resume and reached out to a few trusted industry contacts, laying groundwork for a potential job search. But I was not planning to fail. The truth was on my side, and I was determined to make it heard. Friday morning arrived with a sense of destiny. I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit, a tailored charcoal suit with a crisp white blouse. I wanted to project confidence and authority. As I left my apartment, I received an unexpected call from Michael Harrison. "Robin," he said, his tone uncharacteristically hesitant, "I wanted to let you know that I have been looking into some of the concerns you raised about Phoenix." My heart raced, and there are some discrepancies that warrant further investigation. He paused. "James has suggested removing you from the project entirely, but I have put that decision on hold." "Thank you for that," I said, carefully unsure of his true position. "I just want what is best for the company and our clients," Michael replied. "If you have additional information that could clarify the situation, I am willing to listen." I considered telling him about my plan to attend the Windsor meeting, but decided against it. Michael's loyalty to James was still a variable I could not predict. "I appreciate that, Michael. I will be in touch soon with more details." As I hung up, I felt a mix of apprehension and determination. The pieces were in place. Now I just needed to execute my plan flawlessly. The Windsor Club awaited, and with it the confrontation that would either vindicate me or end my career at Harrison Goldman. The Windsor Club stood like a fortress of privilege in Midtown Manhattan, its brick facade and discreet brass plaque signaling exclusivity without ostentation. As a woman who had grown up in a middle-class neighborhood in Philadelphia, places like this had always seemed like another world to me, belonging to old money and older power networks. I arrived 15 minutes before the scheduled meeting time, my portfolio containing all my evidence tucked under my arm. The doorman regarded me with polite suspicion. "May I help you, madam?" "I am here for the Harrison Goldman meeting in the private dining room," I stated confidently. He consulted his list. "I do not see your name on the reservation." "There must be a mistake. I am Robin Williams, lead strategist for the Phoenix project being discussed today." The doorman remained unmoved. "I cannot admit anyone not on the approved list." Just as my confidence began to falter, Thomas Wilson appeared in the lobby. "Robin, good to see you," he said warmly, as if he had been expecting me. "Gentlemen, Miss Williams will be joining the Harrison Goldman meeting." The doorman deferred immediately to the general manager, and I was escorted into the club's hushed interior. Dark wood paneling, oil paintings of distinguished gentlemen from bygone eras, and the muted conversations of powerful people conducting important business surrounded me. "They are already in the Hemingway room," Thomas informed me quietly. James arrived early with his assistant. William Abbott and the other board members arrived a few minutes ago. "Thank you for this," I said sincerely. Thomas nodded soberly. "I believe in fairness. What happens next is up to you." He led me down a corridor to a heavy oak door, then discreetly withdrew. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and opened the door. The private dining room was intimate but elegant, dominated by a gleaming mahogany table. James sat at the head with Alexandra at his right hand. William Abbott and two other board members, I recognized as Richard Keller and Diane Fujimoto, sat across from each other. Place settings with the Windsor Club's crest gleamed at each position, and a pitcher of water sat in the center of the table. All five heads turned as I entered. James's expression shifted rapidly from confusion to alarm to forced composure. "Robin," he said with artificial pleasantness, "this is a private meeting. You are not on the attendee list." I smiled calmly. As the lead strategist for Phoenix, I thought it important to be present for any discussion about the project. Alexandra stood up, her face a mask of professional disdain. "This is inappropriate. Mr. Wright is presenting to the board members about strategic vision. Your operational role is not relevant to this conversation." "Perhaps leaving suits you better," she added with a smirk, gesturing toward the door. I maintained my composure, smiled, and pulled out my phone. Without speaking, I sent a pre-prepared text to Thomas. Then I remained standing, portfolio clutched in my hands, refusing to be intimidated into leaving. James turned to William Abbott with an apologetic smile. I am sorry for this interruption. Robin has been experiencing some difficulties accepting leadership decisions lately. William Abbott studied me thoughtfully, but said nothing. James continued as if I were not there. As I was saying before this interruption, the Phoenix Project represents a bold new direction for Harris and Goldman. My strategy integrates cutting-edge personalization with practical implementation through specialized partnerships. I remained silent, waiting. Less than a minute later, the door opened again, and Thomas entered. He was carrying a chair which he placed at the table directly across from James. Then he leaned down and whispered something in James's ear. The effect was immediate and dramatic. James's confident smirk vanished. His eyes widened, and he slowly set down the pen he had been holding. Thomas straightened up and addressed the room. Miss Williams will be joining your meeting as a key stakeholder in the Phoenix Project. Can I get anyone refreshments before you continue? When no one responded, Thomas nodded politely and exited, closing the door behind him. What did he say to you? Alexandra demanded of James in a harsh whisper. James ignored her, his eyes fixed on me. What is this about Robin? I finally took my seat at the table. This is about honesty, integrity, and the future of the Phoenix Project. William Abbott leaned forward. I think we all deserve an explanation for this unusual situation. Indeed, I agreed, opening my portfolio. I have discovered some concerning information about how the Phoenix Project is being managed, particularly regarding the involvement of Pinnacle Partners. I laid out 3 documents on the table. These are the original project scope I developed, the altered version presented to clients, and the implementation plan that inexplicably includes Pinnacle Partners, a firm owned by Edward Wright, James's brother-in-law. Richard Keller, a board member with a background in finance, picked up the implementation plan. Is this accurate? Pinnacle would receive $3 million for implementation services. Services my internal team is fully equipped to provide, I confirmed. Furthermore, I have documentation showing that James has been systematically undermining my leadership of Phoenix while presenting my work as his own. Diane Fujimoto, known for her direct approach, turned to James. Is there a family connection between you and this Pinnacle company? James's composure cracked slightly. My brother-in-law owns a minority stake, but that has nothing to do with their selection. They were chosen purely on merit. By whom? I challenged. No technical evaluation was ever conducted. No RFP was issued. Pinnacle appeared in the implementation plan after you personally revised my team's strategy documents. I continued, methodically presenting my evidence, the altered reports, the redirected emails, the testimony from Rachel at Vortex Digital, and the pattern of similar behavior from James's previous employment. Alexandra attempted to intervene several times, but William Abbott silenced her with a raised hand. Let Robin finish, he said firmly. When I reached the statements from former employees who had been pushed out by James, his face had turned ashen. These women all tell remarkably similar stories, I explained. Talented professionals whose ideas were appropriated, whose work was undermined, and who were eventually forced out of the company. The pattern is undeniable. William Abbott turned to James. This is extremely concerning. What do you have to say in your defense? James had recovered some of his composure. These are the desperate accusations of an employee who cannot accept criticism. Robin's work on Phoenix has been substandard from the beginning, requiring significant revisions from my team. Then why did you present her original strategy to Vortex Digital as your own creation? Diane asked. We have written confirmation from their CEO. And why does the budget allocation for Pinnacle exactly match the reduction in internal implementation resources? Richard added, pointing to the financial documents. James looked to Alexandra for support, but she had gone quiet, her earlier smugness replaced by calculation. I could almost see her assessing whether to remain loyal to James or save herself. The board has not approved any partnership with Pinnacle Partners, William stated flatly. Nor would we approve a contract with a company owned by a family member without full disclosure and a competitive bidding process. James attempted one last defense. Michael Harrison has reviewed and approved all my decisions regarding Phoenix. Has he seen these documents? William asked, gesturing to the evidence spread across the table. James's silence was answer enough. William turned to me. Robin, what outcome are you seeking here? It was the question I had been waiting for. I want Phoenix to succeed as originally envisioned. It is a groundbreaking project that could transform digital marketing. I want to lead it as intended without interference or sabotage. And I want assurance that this pattern of behavior will not continue at Harris & Goldman. The three board members exchanged glances, then William Abbott nodded. I believe we need to continue this discussion at the corporate office with Michael Harrison present. This situation clearly requires immediate attention. As the meeting adjourned, James remained seated, staring blankly at the documents before him. His carefully constructed facade had crumbled, exposing the manipulation and nepotism beneath. Alexandra gathered her things quickly, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Her earlier comment about leaving came back to me with ironic clarity. Indeed, leaving would suit someone better, but it would not be me. As we exited the Windsor Club, William Abbott fell into step beside me. That took courage, he said quietly. Not many people would risk their career to protect the integrity of a project. Phoenix is worth fighting for, I replied simply. And so is a workplace where talent and honesty matter more than gender or connections. William nodded thoughtfully. Harris & Goldman needs more of that attitude. Let's see what we can do to foster it. We walked toward the waiting town cars, the afternoon sun catching the glass towers of Midtown. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders. Whatever happened next, the truth was finally out. The fallout was swift and decisive. By Monday morning, James Wright had been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Alexandra disappeared even faster, cleaning out her desk over the weekend when the office was empty. The board appointed an independent counsel to review all of James's projects and financial decisions from the past 3 years. Michael Harrison called me into his office first thing Monday. His normally confident demeanor was subdued, almost contrite. I owe you an apology, Robin, he began, gesturing for me to sit. I should have taken your concerns more seriously from the beginning. Yes, you should have, I replied calmly. There was no anger in my voice, just acknowledgement of the truth. Michael nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke. William Abbott has briefed me on everything that was revealed at the Windsor Club. I had no idea about Pinnacle Partners' connection to James's family, or the extent to which he was altering your work. James was careful to keep you insulated from the details, I acknowledged, and he counted on your friendship and trust. A trust that was misplaced, Michael sighed heavily. The board has asked me to personally review the Phoenix project from the ground up to ensure its integrity moving forward. And what have you concluded? I asked. That your original vision was exactly what we promised our clients. He slid a folder across the desk. This is an official appointment letter. You are now Executive Director of the Phoenix Project with full authority over all aspects of implementation. No one, including me, will override your decisions without board approval. I opened the folder and scanned the document, which included a significant promotion and salary increase. And Pinnacle Partners, their involvement has been terminated. All implementation will be handled internally as you originally planned. Michael leaned forward. Robin, I want you to know that this incident has forced us to examine our entire corporate culture. The board has authorized a comprehensive review of our policies on harassment, discrimination, and ethical business practices. Over the following weeks, the full extent of James's manipulation became clear. The independent investigation revealed that he had been directing business to friends and family for years, collecting kickbacks and manipulating project outcomes to benefit his network. 5 other employees came forward with stories similar to mine, describing how James had undermined them and stolen credit for their work. William Abbott became my unexpected mentor during this period. He checked in regularly on Phoenix's progress and offered guidance on navigating the complex politics of the executive level. "What you did took more than courage," he told me during one of our conversations. "It took strategic thinking and meticulous preparation. Those are qualities we need more of in leadership." The Phoenix Project itself became a symbol of renewal within Harris and Goldman. With the obstacles removed, my team thrived. We implemented the innovative personalization strategies I had originally envisioned, creating a digital marketing framework that truly revolutionized how our clients connected with consumers. 6 months after the Windsor Club confrontation, Phoenix officially launched. The results exceeded even our ambitious projections, with client engagement metrics showing unprecedented improvement. Industry publications wrote about the Phoenix phenomenon, and competitors scrambled to replicate our approach. But the personal journey was as significant as the professional one. The months of battling James's sabotage had taken an emotional toll that I had not fully acknowledged until the fight was over. For weeks after his removal, I still found myself documenting everything, obsessively expecting traps or manipulation around every corner. Benjamin noticed my hypervigilance during a team celebration for Phoenix's successful launch. "You know you do not have to record this conversation, right?" he joked, gently nodding at my phone set on the table. "James is gone. You won." I smiled ruefully. Old habits die hard. I spent so long in survival mode that I am still adjusting to safety. "That is understandable," Laura said, joining our conversation. "Workplace trauma is real. Maybe the company's new wellness program could help." She was referring to one of many initiatives that had sprung from the cultural overhaul following James's departure. Harris and Goldman had implemented comprehensive anti-harassment training, anonymous reporting systems, and mental health resources for employees. Most significantly, Michael Harrison had established a women's leadership program with me as one of its key advisors. We created structured mentoring relationships, ensuring that talented women received the support and recognition they deserved. "I never set out to be an agent of change," I admitted to William Abbott during our quarterly review meeting. "I just wanted to do my job without being undermined." "The best reforms often come from people who simply refuse to accept injustice as normal," he replied. "You have transformed this company as much as Phoenix has transformed our industry." 1 year after the Windsor Club confrontation, I received an email that brought the journey full circle. It was from Stephanie Donovan, one of the women James had pushed out years earlier. "I heard about what you did," she wrote. "Thank you for standing up to him when the rest of us could not. You've made Harris and Goldman a place where I might consider working again someday." Her words reminded me of what this fight had really been about. Not just my career or even the Phoenix Project, but creating a workplace where talent and integrity mattered more than gender or political games. As I sit in my new corner office looking out at the Manhattan skyline, I reflect on how different things might have been if I had simply accepted James's sabotage as the way things are. If I had left like those before me or compromised my principles to avoid conflict. The truth is that power does not reside in titles or corner offices. It lies in the courage to stand up for what is right even when standing alone. It comes from meticulous preparation and strategic thinking. And most importantly, it grows when we refuse to let others define our worth or limit our potential. The Phoenix Project was aptly named in ways I never anticipated. Like the mythical bird, something new and powerful emerged from the ashes of what James tried to destroy. Both the project and my career rose stronger than before, transformed by the very fire meant to consume them. If you have ever faced workplace sabotage or felt your contributions being minimized, remember my story. Document everything. Build alliances with people of integrity. Prepare meticulously. And when the moment comes to take a stand, do it with confidence and evidence. Has someone ever tried to take credit for your work or undermine your success? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more tales of professional resilience. Remember to share this video with anyone facing similar challenges who might need encouragement. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your worth is not determined by those who try to diminish you, but by your own courage to stand tall in the face of injustice.